good pair of boots are a tool of the trade for the working cowboy, and for some, there's nothing like a handmade pair from Idaho working cowboy, Seth Teichert.
I love it. I love the finished product when it turns out right.
In the garage of a home on a windswept cattle ranch outside Mackay, Idaho, you'll find the custom boot shop of cowboy Seth Teichert.
I'm not in it for really the money. It's a fun hobby for me.
It's not like he needs a hobby to fill his time. Seth is a married father of 4 children, runs a working cattle ranch, spends hours volunteering at his church, enjoys hunting and sport shooting, but just for fun, builds custom cowboy boots.
I can't sit around and do nothing. Sitting down watching TV bores me. I can't sit around. I have to be doing something.
When he has to spare a moment, which isn't too often, he heads to the garage to build boots, the old school way, handmade and stitched together with vintage equipment.
These machines here are the finishers. This is the buffer. I don't know a year on these, but they're very old. I'm guessing 30s, probably 1930s. This is a sole stitcher. Big heavy machine, weighs about 800 pounds, and it'll stitch through the sole and the welt of a boot. Difficult to run. This thing kind of runs the shop. It's the boss of the shop. It's a 1929 is when it was made, a little Singer 3115. Stitches like it's brand new. The old machines feel good, and they don't cost as much money.
It all started by accident.
I liked playing with leather. I always knew that. I liked just doing little leather projects, and I was searching for a leather sewing machine. I call the guy, he says, I'm actually a boot repair shop. Long story short, I ended up buying the shop.
The working cowboy had long been buying his own boots from a custom boot shop in DuBois, Idaho, run by Steve and Bev Gilger.
So I told them I bought a boot repair shop, and they said, well, what are you going to do with the machines? I said, that's a great question. I don't know. And they offered me a paid apprenticeship.
Newly married, Seth and his bride moved into the apartment above the boot shop, where he spent the next 7 months learning the craft of building boots.
Great experience, learned a lot. They're still good friends today. We still talk. They still coach me along and help me.
Fast forward a couple of years, and Seth is managing the ranch in Mackay, but still working on boots, learning through seminars, classes, and videos. And after lots of trial and error, he finally started getting the hang of it.
That's kind of how I got my start, just here at the ranch in the evenings. As I had time, I'd go fiddle with boots, and got to where I was pretty comfortable with it and started taking some orders, and the orders have kind of taken off. A lot of people call an order, and
it's quite a process, starting with what's known as a last.
You shape it to the person's foot off of the foot measurements, build up with leather where you need to shape that foot, and then you build the boot around that.
Then you have to cut the custom designed leather pattern for the upper part of the boot.
What I'll do is I make a cardboard pattern and I'd use his foot measurements, and then I cut out my top pattern. So I'm going to cut this cross out in gray and put it on the top here, and then he wants red stitching around that. And so it's going to be a black, gray, and red pair of boots. He's very particular on what he wants.
When it's all sewn together, the boot gets mounted on the last.
This pair right here is for a local rancher, one of the neighbors. This will be his second pair. This is a matching pair to his first pair. Water buffalo bottoms and a kangaroo top. It's at the stage it was just recently lasted. It's still wet.
Seth uses lemon wood pegs to mount the boot instead of nails.
Your boots are going to get wet out working. That's just the long and the short of it. These will swell, tighten the boot, less chance of leaking dirt. A nail will rust, cause a little bit bigger hole, and over time they start to let go when you start getting dirt leaking in and water leaking in.
Then comes the welt.
There's this part here. That goes around, and that's what the sole will sole to.
Seth calls good quality material the key to a well-built boot.
This is the insole I use, a good thick leather insole, and a lot of boots are still made with these, and you look for that. Really helps the longevity of a boot.
You wind up with beautiful handcrafted custom boots that fit and last. But they're not cheap, typically $1,200 to $2,000 a pair.
And I've had people that have questioned me on boots. I'd like a pair of boots, and they hear $650, their jaw hits the floor. They're really amazed at what they cost.
But for a working cowboy, expensive well-made boots are actually cheaper.
The lifespan you get out of a pair of custom or handmade boots is so much longer than a pair of factory boots that you can just buy off the shelf at a store. And that's how you justify that price.
If you're one of Seth's children, boots are free when you turn 3.
And that's their own. We don't pass them down to the next kid. That's their boot that I hope they keep the rest of their lives and go, that was my first pair from Dad.
It takes about 40 hours for Seth to build a pair of boots, even longer for the fancier ones. So $1,000 or more, which of course includes the cost of materials, isn't much profit. That is a lot of money for a working cowboy, but a good pair of boots is a critical tool of the trade for the guys who make their living on the back of a horse.
And working cowboys, they'll spend money on saddles, on headgear for a horse, on boots, things that they need to have good. You can go buy a factory saddle also, and they don't last, they don't hold up. You get a bull rope, you break the tree. What good was that? You saved money on the purchase price, but you lost money in the long run.
Working cowboys are his main clientele, and there's nothing more satisfying than a satisfied customer.
I love it. Go to a branding and there's 6 or 8 pair of my boots running around the branding. It's neat to see that, and they're holding up. Nobody's cussing at me too bad because they hurt their feet.
Unfortunately, if you want a pair of Seth's boots, you're out of luck, at least for now. The waiting list is so long, 4.5 years, that he's quit taking orders. But for those lucky enough to snag a pair, they're worth the wait.
Yeah, it takes a long time. I'm about 40 hours in a plain pair of boots like this. You get into some of the fancier boots, there's more time, but the end products, if you take your time and do each step right, and I think that would apply to about anything in life, if you do each step correctly, you're going to end up with the product you like.
That's it for now. We're back next time with more cool stuff from today's Wild West. I'm Mark Bedore. We'll see you down the trail. For more information on the people and places featured in today's Wild West, or to order show DVDs and books, visit todayswildwest.com.